Hello, welcome back to my channel. It's been a long time. I haven't filmed a video, I think, since like December, and it's now October. Oh my god, that's crazy. Yeah, so it's been a long time. I wanted to sort of transition into more med school content, but I found it hard to really put anything out because I hadn't been in med school long enough to like be an authority on anything. So I didn't quite know what I wanted to put out. Also, med school is quite busy. I do want to film an updated, what my first year of med school was like, but that's not what this video is. This video is how I study for medical school and what's worked for me. Just because I think when I was starting medical school, it would have been helpful to see someone's workflow. And I actually did watch a couple videos on YouTube of med students' workflows, and that was helpful. So I figured I would contribute and sort of do what's worked for me and what I've learned in my year and change of medical school. I do want to preface it by saying that everyone studies differently. This is just what works for me. I'm sure, 2 years from now, I'll look back and be like, oh, I should have been doing this instead. But I find that the way I study has been quite efficient and saved me a lot of time, and I've done well in my classes. So, it works. And yeah, I think there's a lot of mystery around like how you should study for medical school. And I just want to show you that it doesn't have to be that complicated, but also that this is not what you have to do, but this is just a way of approaching it that you can try and then maybe never do again if you don't like, or follow, and maybe it'll help. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, hello. So this is how I would normally approach starting a new block. So we just started GU, and this right here is my very first day of GU. Right now it's Wednesday, but let's just pretend it's Monday. I look at the calendar and I see that I have, our first lecture is module introduction and breast disease. Then I have developmental physiology, embryology of male and female, and then some other stuff. So what I would normally do is I would start to do basically that for the entire week. So I would then go to the next day and go, okay, we have a lab, we have reproductive tract histology, okay, we have BRCA, ovarian neoplasia, etc., etc. And I would make a document that looks something like this, which hopefully you can see. And this is actually a shared document because we started doing it together. So I actually didn't do any of this. But the idea is the same, where, I have basically every lecture mapped out, and I put the corresponding third-party resource, whether it's Boards and Beyond or Pathoma or Sketchy. Those are the three main ones that I tend to use. I just map them out, and I do that. Normally, I would go week by week. My friends are overachievers, and they just did the whole unit. But basically, I would do this. And how do you do that, do you ask? When I first started med school, I would go and look at the lecture material and try to piece together what is being taught. I gave up on doing that, and now simply what I do is, for example, for Pathoma, let's go into, where's breast? Okay, breast pathology. I can see that the title of this lecture is breast disease. So breast pathology, meaning breast disease, I'm just gonna watch all 4 of these videos. So I kind of have simplified it, and I don't go in and look for the minutia. I just go based off the lecture title, and then I watch the corresponding Pathoma or Boards and Beyond. I'll show you the example for Boards and Beyond. So breast disease, that was pretty easy because it's kind of just exactly what the Pathoma says. Developmental physiology, embryology of male and female. That's more of a Boards and Beyond thing. So here we have embryology. We have embryonic genes, embryogenesis, yada, yada, yada. That doesn't really seem like what we're doing. What we're doing is this. So this is the video that I'm going to watch to correspond with this lecture. And you can see I have that, or we have that here. So that's kind of what I do. And it can be a little nerve-wracking at first because you're like, well, what if I'm, what if in this lecture here they actually cover a little bit of, pharyngeal pouches and clefts. There's always an element of that, but no, generally, if you do your best to get most of the boards and beyond and pathoma done for a specific unit, you will eventually cover all the material, even if it's not in the exact order. So we're not doing most of embryology for this GU unit. Some of it we did in anatomy, but I'm still going to plan to watch some of these videos, even though it's not scheduled, because I have to know it for STEP. And, we're doing ovary at some point this week or next week, and there's 4 videos. Let's say I only really feel like the lecture corresponds to 3 of them. I'm still probably going to watch the 4th because, again, I need to know this stuff anyway for STEP, and that way I'm making sure I'm covering pretty much everything, even if I'm maybe a little bit ahead of the curve or a little bit behind because I didn't do it, a couple days ago when I was supposed to. So that's the general sort of how I find the videos. Oh my God, my cat is being crazy. And then what I do when I watch the video is I just watch the video. But I do not take notes. I just listen to the video. I do doodle. I have just blank sheets of paper, and I wish I could make myself bigger because I'm no longer, I can put myself in the center. Okay. I just kind of have blank sheets of paper and a pen, and as I'm listening, I'm just mind mapping what is being said, but I'm not taking these beautifully detailed, highlighted, section notes. I'm kind of just putting my thoughts on paper. Ugly. Here, I'll show you. I don't even, just ugly, I can't go back and look at this. This is not practical. But it helps me just get my thoughts on paper and separate things. For example, for breast that we were just learning, there's so many different types of malignancies and also pre-malignancies and also things that don't have a potential to turn to malignancy, whatever. And so it just is helpful to put it in different corners of a white paper so I keep them separate in my brain. You can do this in a more organized fashion and have a nice little notebook or something where you do it. But my point is don't, at least in my opinion, don't waste time trying to make your notes super beautiful, amazing, color-coded, because the amount that you're getting out for the amount of time you're putting in, I just don't think it's worth it. I think it's good to be able to look back at your notes. I obviously don't have that, but some of my friends do. And I think that's useful. It's useful to go back and reference something, but I wouldn't do that at the expense of time. If you can do a little quick jot down, that's totally fine. But if you're taking hours perfecting your note-taking and making it look pretty and this and that, personally, I think it's a waste of time, and I think there are much more efficient ways of solidifying knowledge. So, okay, I watch the video, I listen, I kind of doodle and mind map things. And then immediately what I do after that is, so for example, let me move myself. Most recently I did this whole breast pathology section. So I'm going to go to my Anki, I'm going to go to browse. I'm going to go under the, OnKing Step 1 V12. We're going to go under the Pathoma tab. Let's pretend that was closed. Pathoma. I'm going to go under the breast tab. And I'm just going to go and unsuspend this. So now it's unsuspended already because I already did this. But say I watch the introduction and inflammatory conditions in a row. I would go back, I would unsuspend these, and then I would go to my Anki, and I would do them right away. If you're going to do your Anki cards right away, make sure you understand the cards. Don't just do the card and be like, oh, well, I just saw that, so I get it. No, I want you to look at the card and go, okay, I recognize that because I just watched the video, but why? Do I know why? If you know why, there's probably a good chance that tomorrow you're going to remember it and understand why. If you're looking at a card and you're like, oh, I know what the answer is, but like, I don't know why that happens, you don't know the card. So let's see if I can do an example of this. I don't want to reset my cards, but here, I'm going to create, let's see if I can do this. Hello? Okay. Okay, these are cards that are just new that I haven't gotten to. So say I just watched a video, and this is the first card that comes up. An intraductal papilloma is a proliferation of papillary cells that develops in blank or cyst wall with a... See, I don't know the answer to this. That develops in... like in the duct? Like, I don't know. Let's see. And of course, I can't flip the card. Oh, okay, I do know it. So anyway, I kind of knew the card. Again, I didn't just do this. But now what I would do is I'm like, okay, what does it really mean that it develops in ducts? Does it then not go into like the lobule part? Like, do I understand why this papilloma only develops in ducts? And like, what is a cyst wall? Like, this is what you should be doing the first time you're seeing a card. And what I'll do is I'll go into ChatGPT and I'll either screenshot this card and be like, hey, ChatGPT, I don't understand why it's only ducts, or what's a cyst wall, what's a fibrovascular cord, like what's in that. And then once you do that and you understand the card, you can hit good on it. I'm not going to do that because I do want to investigate more about this card, so I'm going to click again. But that's what you should be doing the first time you see a card if you don't actually genuinely understand it. Because I think a point of confusion for, you're not confusion, but just like people do it differently, is should I do my Anki cards right after a video, but I'm risking like saying good on the card just because I just saw the card, or should I leave the card for tomorrow when, you know, my short-term memory isn't helping me anymore? And I think you could go either way. I just think if you're going to do it right after the video like I do, you have to make sure you understand the card. And you have to make sure you understand the card anyway. I just prefer doing it right away because otherwise I feel like I'm not in the same mindset and I'm already like, I'm compounding things that I have learned. Like, I feel like I'd rather just like learn everything in one sitting and then move on to the next thing. And of course you have to review things, but that's a different video. So, okay, this is a cardio card that I had to reset, so we can ignore this. So we watch the Boards and Beyond video or the Pathoma. We listen, we do a little mind map. Maybe if you don't understand something, you pause the video, rewind 10 seconds, or you ask ChatGPT, like, don't know what that means. Then we go to Anki, we do the cards, make sure we understand the cards. And that's how I do the first step of like knowledge acquisition. This is an ongoing process. Sometimes you think you understand something, like let's say you understand a card, like a fact in a card, and then you get the card tomorrow and you're like, I actually don't know what that means. And so you go back and you ask ChatGPT, or you like, you know, have to Google something, and that's part of the learning process. But this is my process for the initial stage of like learning acquisition. So, okay, we did the first two. Then let's say I'm going to watch the next two videos. Again, I'm listening, I'm mind mapping, whatever. Then I go back. I go to Anki, I go to browse, I go to benign and breast cancer. I unsuspend those. Am I allowed to show that? Okay, doesn't matter. I'm going to have to blur that out. Okay, anyway. I go here, I do benign tumors and breast cancers, I unsuspend, I go here, I do my cards, I make sure I understand why the card is true, not just make sure that I know what's on the flip side of the card, but why it's true that that's what's on the card. And then I move on to the next thing, and that's just kind of my iterative process. Then I kind of keep doing that until I'm done for the day with the amount of material that I want to be done with. So let's see. So, say in the first day it was just these 4. So once I'm done with that, great. Now I can move on to do, research or answer emails or finish my Anki, whatever it is. And then eventually, once I've done maybe a week or so of content, is when I start to do practice questions. Practice questions, I think, are a great resource. And honestly, you can also do them sooner if that's helpful for you. I just find that, if I have too narrow of a scope of questions, I sometimes can get the answer just because I can recognize, for example, here, I'll try to be less vague. What can happen sorry if the screen changed, I had to pause it. So what can happen if you do questions based on too narrow of a scope? So let's say I only do practice questions based on these couple cards on breast pathology, which, by the way, this little button up here is an add-on where it's an Amboss add-on where Amboss will pull questions based only on the cards that you have told it to. So I don't want to see questions on ovary, so I'm just going to do questions based on this breast pathology. That can be good if you're having a hard time really integrating the topics, but I like to wait until I have a little bit more variety so that I'm practicing multi-system thinking. Not even multi-system because you're within the same system, but I'm not just thinking of breast. Because sometimes the question won't tell you hey, this is a breast question. You have to decide oh, is this an ovary issue, a breast issue, a something else issue? And if I'm only doing questions on breast, I think it narrows my focus and maybe I can answer the question easier, but not necessarily because I'm, it's only because I don't know enough information and I know then that the other answers are wrong probably, because again, this pulled questions specifically about breast pathology, if that makes sense. It's not a big deal. I just like to wait a couple lectures and have a little bit more things before I start integrating practice questions. But you can also totally do it after a couple lectures. It's kind of just personal preference. So that's kind of my workflow. Amboss I tend to use, again, for that more okay, I've done a couple lectures, it's been a week or so. Then towards the last week, when I'm reaching the final, I start to do a little bit of UWorld. So that's just kind of how I like to do questions. But that's kind of my workflow. I feel I don't know, I'm now that I'm filming this, I'm that seems quite simple, but when I was starting medical school, I was just oh my god, I don't know what to do. This is what works for me. I think you have to just have a commitment to understanding the material, which sounds really yeah, okay, but what I was doing at the beginning of medical school is I would watch the video, I would unsuspend my cards, and as long as I could remember the card based on just word association, I was nah, I'm fine. I'll get the question right. And it was good enough. I was passing comfortably, I was doing well, but I don't think it's not really in the spirit of what medical school is, and also I think made it harder for me to really remember concepts down the line. Cardiology, for example, I took that block a couple months ago, and I'm having a hard time remembering the principles because I didn't really commit them to, I didn't really understand them. I just kind of commit things to memory. And, memory is a part of understanding because you have to remember certain things. But I wish I had spent more time really dissecting, why is a certain thing the way it is. And I think that solidifies your long-term understanding a little bit more. So yeah, that's how I've been approaching studying and how it's been working for me. I think if you want to watch in-house lecture, that's a different sort of study strategy. I prefer to watch third party because I think it saves me a lot of time and I just prefer it, But yeah, that's just how I study for medical school and what I found has worked well for me. And I feel like it's not super time consuming and I still have time for other things in my life. But yeah, I think I'm going to actually switch to normal view because we don't need to look at my screen anymore. So 1 second. Okay, one more thing I'll say about like my learning evolution that I wish I had like taken more seriously at the beginning is that getting really curious about the things you're learning will really serve you in understanding the topic, which again sounds obvious, but I think what I used to do, especially at the beginning, was I would watch a video and be like, okay, these are the words that I'm being told. And like questions would come up and I would just be like, nah, like they'll become clear when I do the Anki. Or like, nah, it'll come clear when I do the practice questions. And like they did. Like eventually you start to learn like, oh, okay, like that's why this distinction is important, or that's why it's important that this protein gets transported this way or whatever. But you end up taking a lot more time to get to that conclusion and you're not being as efficient as if you were to just do that the first time you're learning something. So, for example, I was recently like in the GI unit, we were learning about like heme metabolism, and the boards and beyond tells you like, okay, heme gets converted to biliverdin, and then biliverdin into unconjugated bilirubin, and then unconjugated goes to the liver, and then the liver conjugates it and whatever. Normally, I would have just been like, okay, those are words, and like the sequence of events and why it's important will become clear to me when I do practice questions. But instead, what I did is I just stopped and I was like, I actually don't understand where this is occurring. Like I was like, okay, heme gets broken down into biliverdin. Where? Like in what part? Like I'm like trying to think like logistically and in order. In what part of the body does that happen? And then how does the unconjugated bilirubin make its way to the liver? And it's because it's conjugated to albumin, whatever. But like, because I got curious early on, I have a pen on my hand, early on in the learning process, then by the time I was doing the Anki and the practice questions, I already knew the answers because I had put in that effort to be like, you have to be almost honest with yourself of like, I actually don't even know, like I know what the liver is, but like, where is this enzyme that conjugates it? Is it in every cell? Is it in a specific cell type? Like you get almost like very curious and existential about it and you think it's dumb questions, but it's totally not. Like it's exactly the things that the examiners go after. And so I wish I just had more of that curiosity early on and not thought that like, oh, well, whatever question I ask, it's not going to be relevant. Like I'll let boards and beyond, or I'll let, Amboss and Anki tell me how I need to be thinking about this. Like, no, like you can totally ask the stupid question. You can totally ask like the like obvious thing that maybe isn't obvious to you. And again, more often than not, that's what the examiners are going after, is like the things you take for granted that you're like are actually integral to your understanding. So I don't know. I this sounds obvious, but again, I feel like I was quite lazy in my learning in the beginning stages of my med school career, which is totally fine. Like it's just part of the learning process. But by being more active early on, I feel like I've done a lot for my retention and my understanding, as opposed to just kind of letting the question dictate what I'm learning, if that makes sense. So anyway, those are my 2 cents.